Last season, 17% of flagrant fouls were against Clark. 17%. I mean, there's how many players? And 17% are all against Clark. Now, you got to be asking yourself, where are the refs?
Caitlin Clark isn't just making headlines in the WNBA. She's become a topic of conversation across sports, entertainment, and media. And it's not because she's asking for attention. It's because what she's doing on the court is simply impossible to ignore. Game after game, moment after moment, she's drawing in fans who wouldn't normally tune into women's basketball. She's creating headlines that go far beyond final scores, and somehow the buzz around her just keeps growing louder. We've seen great players before, but this feels different. The reactions she inspires, the debates she sparks, the way people try to define her impact, it all says more than any stat sheet ever could. And when some of the biggest public voices start chiming in, it becomes clear why so many people can't take their eyes off what's happening. Just when it feels like everyone is getting behind Caitlin Clark's rise, things take an unexpected turn. Because when names like Dr. Phil and respected journalist Christine Brennan speak up, it's not just typical praise. It's something far more direct. Their words took the conversation to a whole new level, and it's not what anyone expected. Even comedian Shane Gillis, who's known for staying cool on stage no matter who's in the crowd, had a moment where Caitlin Clark's presence threw him off his game. A rare sight for someone who makes a living roasting celebrities without flinching.
I was starstruck. Caitlin Clark was at my show in Indiana, and I had, for some reason, I was like, like, I don't. Every once in a while, somebody gets me that I didn't think was going to make me.
There's a clip.
That moment wasn't about fake humility, and it was genuine, wide-eyed admiration for a player making her mark in the WNBA. No Hollywood background, no music career, just pure basketball talent. That's the Caitlin Clark effect. She doesn't just enter a room quietly, she commands it, even if someone else is holding the microphone. And she's leaving that impression on more than just comedians. Take Dan Dokic, for example. A longtime figure in the game, Dokic has coached at Indiana, worked as an analyst at ESPN, and seen some of the greatest players up close. When someone with his experience says he's never seen a player quite like Caitlin Clark, it's not just flattery. It's a clear message to the league. Something special is happening, and everyone should be paying attention.
The most unique, fan-friendly basketball game that a player in the WNBA has ever had. It's, I said from the get-go, it's Steph Curry. We've seen, and this is unfortunate, we had a great player here, Tamika Catchings, but we've seen her game. Asia Wilson's a terrific player, but we've seen her game.
Yeah, we have.
We've seen from the free throw line down, or we've seen from the three-point line down. We've seen, seen anything like Caitlin Clark.
And that's what makes this so important. Dan Dokic isn't just praising Caitlin Clark's talent. He's pointing out how she's reshaping the way women's basketball is played and even understood. Her deep shooting range has completely altered how defenses prepare. Before Caitlin Clark, teams didn't worry about guarding players 35 feet from the basket. Now, opponents are picking her up the moment she crosses half court. She's forcing coaches to rethink defensive strategies, implementing coverages usually seen in men's basketball, not because anyone wanted to, but because they simply have no choice. Dan Dokic wasn't exaggerating when he said, "We've never seen this before." Because when Clark is on the floor, defenses aren't just adjusting, they're scrambling. But not everyone sees her impact the same way. After a dominant Fever win, ESPN's Caroline Peck stirred up some debate. Not because Indiana won, but because Caitlin Clark didn't play. And according to Peck, the Fever might have looked even better without her on the floor.
You were at that game just now. Look, the Fever have been on a tear. They've won 2 in a row, a 25-point blowout of the Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup final, and then 27 against the Aces in this one. In both of those games without Caitlin Clark. How is Indiana getting this done right now?
Look, I think that Indiana is even more dangerous when Caitlin Clark doesn't play because she's a ball-dominant guard. The ball's in her hands a lot, so you know what you need to try to take away.
On the surface, that might sound like simple analysis. But let's be honest, it was more than just breaking down X's and O's. Comments like that aren't made about average players, they're made about stars. Stars who force everyone else to adapt. But here's the twist. Caitlin Clark didn't just hear the criticism, she responded to it. Since those comments, her assists are up, her turnovers are down, and the wins are starting to stack up. She's not just dominating, she's evolving. And when your presence is felt even when you're not on the court, and even more dangerous when you are, that's the mark of a true superstar. Of course, Caitlin Clark has had her fair share of critics. She always has. And odds are she always will. But what sets her apart is how many of those critics eventually come around. They don't just stop doubting her, they start rooting for her. Few people have been more honest about that shift than Sophia Ruffin.
Hating on a person is real, because they're good. And I'm just gonna admit, I was a Caitlin Clark hater that turned into a fan. But I was only hating on her skill set at that time because she was going up against my favorite team, our favorite, just period across the board, South Carolina. And then the year that she knocked them out of the championship game, it was like, oh, nah.
That wasn't a tactical breakdown. It sounded more like an honest confession of heartbreak. South Carolina fans are loyal. They stand by Coach Dawn Staley and everything her program represents. So when Caitlin Clark came in and snapped their winning streak, it didn't just shake up the tournament bracket. It shook the confidence of even the most loyal supporters. Because that game marked a shift. A reminder that greatness doesn't care about team colors or school pride. It shows up, silences the crowd, and changes the outcome. Clark didn't win people over with charm or personality. She earned respect through cold, calculated performances on the sport's biggest stage. And just when it seemed like the conversation around her couldn't get any louder, things took another turn. Someone made a comparison that sparked even more debate. You can always count on the PBD podcast to stir things up. They don't just share opinions. They throw out bold statements. And when Caitlin Clark came up, they didn't just call her talented or exciting. They made a comparison far more explosive.
Of the WNBA will be Caitlin Clark. If she stays healthy, there's a group of them that would hope for her to be out. But
why do you say she's going to be the Jackie Robinson of the WNBA?
Well,
it's not like
she's
the first white girl.
She's not the first white girl, but she's the first white superstar at the levels where she's scoring these, the threes she's shooting. She's like a Steph Curry. She's the first actual superstar that people care. When's the last time we watched college basketball? If I told you, tell me the greatest college basketball female basketball players last 30 years.
Let that simmer. They're not saying Caitlin Clark is just talented.
Let that sink in for a moment. They're not just calling Caitlin Clark talented. They're calling her a barrier breaker and a game changer. Not because of where she comes from or how she looks, but because of the way she's expanding the game's reach, connecting with audiences the WNBA has never captured before. Millions of fans, many of whom couldn't name a single WNBA team just a year ago, are now buying Indiana Fever jerseys, packing arenas, and quoting her stats like lifelong supporters. She's not just participating in the league, she's pulling it into the mainstream spotlight with her success. And if that sounds like an exaggeration, wait until you hear who's been paying attention. When David Letterman sits across from you, you're not just making headlines. You're on the national radar. He's interviewed presidents, movie stars, and sports icons. And after stepping away from network television, his Netflix series became a platform for only the most fascinating people in the world. So when he chose to sit down with Caitlin Clark, it wasn't a casual conversation. It was validation. And he didn't focus on stats or salaries. He asked deeper questions about what fuels her drive.
That encapsulates what I know of you as a human being. It's that the competitive drive that overrides every little daily occurrence. Am I right about that?
This wasn't just small talk. David Letterman doesn't hand out compliments casually. He's known for his dry humor, sharp sarcasm, and unexpected questions. But with Caitlin Clark, he leaned in. Because what he recognized wasn't just a gifted scorer. He saw a 22-year-old with the same laser focus and competitive fire that he's witnessed in every icon he's ever interviewed. That mentality, it's not just why she sinks shots from the logo. It's why people like Letterman can't look away. And it's not just opinion. The numbers back it up. The data is making the same case, loud and clear. And when it comes to data, few voices carry more weight than Christine Brennan. She doesn't trade in hype, she deals in facts. She's covered every Olympic Games since 1984 and doesn't hand out praise lightly. So when Christine Brennan says that Caitlin Clark is the best thing to ever happen to women's basketball, that's not just an opinion. That's a fact grounded in decades of experience.
Oh, totally. I mean, the New York Liberty have an incredible fan base, incredible success story, obviously the defending champions. But 21, during the regular season, 21 of the 24 games that were over 1 million viewership involved Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. So, 21 out of 24. Okay, there's 3 that weren't, right? I think it is undeniable that this woman is the most important and best thing to ever happen to women's basketball.
Let that sink in for a second. 21 out of 24. That's not a coincidence. That's not a marketing strategy. That's pure gravity. Viewership isn't rising because of some league-wide trend. It's rising because Caitlin Clark is on the court. She's not catching a wave of momentum. She is the wave. And her composure under pressure? It's not just great for the WNBA, it's almost unbelievable considering her age. That's something people often overlook. Caitlin Clark is only 23 years old, younger than some players still waiting for their moment on the bench. But you'd never guess it by the way she leads, plays, and carries herself. Christine Brennan pointed that out as well, offering one of the most glowing endorsements you'll hear from a journalist with her level of experience.
I'm certainly proud of how I broke the story of the Olympic snub, that the USA Basketball was not going to be putting Caitlin Clark, the biggest name in the history of the sport. Whether she deserved to be or not, she is in terms of the fan interest and the appeal. They were not going to put her on the Olympic.
This isn't just a scouting report. It's a character endorsement from someone who's been covering the biggest names in women's sports for over 4 decades. Because Caitlin Clark doesn't just know how to handle the media, she wins them over. She doesn't react to controversy, she rises above it. And while others in the league might take cheap shots, Clark simply smiles, keeps her focus, and responds by casually dropping 25 points with a logo 3. But Christine Brennan wasn't finished. Her final remark struck a nerve across the nation. When Caitlin Clark was left off the Olympic roster, the backlash was immediate. And Brennan was the one who broke the story. And she didn't just call it unexpected, she called it historic.
Ninth amongst guards in the league. This was one of the more frustrating things I saw yesterday because there comes a point to me when thinking about Caitlin Clark being ranked as the 9th best guard in the league by her peers. It is either delusion or it is jealousy. Because when you watch Caitlin Clark play the game of basketball, they don't treat her like she's the 9th best guard. They don't pick her up full court like she's the 9th best guard. They don't blitz her after she crosses half court like she's the 9th best guard. They don't double team her like she's the 9th best guard. They don't foul her as though she's the 9th best guard. So to rank her as the 9th best guard leads me to believe it is either delusion or it is...
Let's take a moment to recognize what's really happening here. One of the most respected voices in the history of women's sports, not just college, not just the pros, but the sport itself, is openly calling this decision what it is: a mistake. Whether or not you agree with the Olympic Selection Committee, Christine Brennan made her position clear. This isn't just any player we're talking about. This is the player. And while Team USA competes in Paris, Caitlin Clark is sitting at home. It's the kind of decision people will look back on and wonder, what were they thinking? And it wasn't just journalists pushing back. Players had something to say too. In sports, peer respect matters. When fellow athletes cast their votes on who they believe is the best, those rankings carry weight. So when Caitlin Clark landed as only the 9th best guard in the WNBA, one podcast couldn't help but react with disbelief.
But we never seen anybody play like Caitlin, and we're all excited about it. And I do think people were more excited because she was white. People in the Midwest love the fact that this is this white girl busting ass, absolutely.
Sure.
But then we, to your point, I think to finish it out, then we see Angel Reese and we're like, well, let's inflate her game because all the other dynamics are there for a great sports rivalry.
When you watch Caitlin Clark play, it's clear no one is treating her like she's just the 9th best guard in the league. Opposing teams aren't defending her like she's ranked 9th either. They're picking her up full court, sending double teams at half court, trapping her on screens, and getting physical at the rim. She draws contact and attention like she's the top player on the floor. Because truthfully, that's how they see her. So when you hear that ranking, it's hard not to question what's really behind it. Is it an honest evaluation, or is it something else? Jealousy, maybe? Because one thing is obvious: when teams prepare for Caitlin Clark, they aren't game planning for someone they view as average. They treat her like a star because that's exactly what she is. The truth is, Caitlin Clark isn't just changing stat sheets. She's challenging egos. In a league that prides itself on toughness and competition, her popularity has stirred up plenty of debate. But the conversation took an even sharper turn when race became part of the discussion. Akash Singh, known for his bold takes as both a comedian and podcaster, didn't shy away from addressing it. When the topic of Caitlin Clark came up, he didn't just praise her skill, he offered insight into why her meteoric rise has sparked such strong reactions.
Yeah, I think this absence and then how she came back really sort of solidified all of that. Because when she came into the league, obviously interest went way up and some of the finances went way up, but there was some argument that it was a little bit of, a rising tide lifts all boats, and the popularity of the league had been increasing anyway, and Angel Reese was also a big star coming into the league. But here we go with Caitlin Clark, singularly, being missing for the time she was gone, and ratings tanking.
The conversation wasn't subtle, it was direct, even a little uncomfortable for some. Caitlin Clark's rapid rise has sparked broader discussions about race, media coverage, and who gets celebrated in the spotlight. But it's important to understand one thing. None of this narrative came from Caitlin herself. She's never positioned herself to be at the center of that conversation. She didn't chase headlines, demand special treatment, or look for controversy. All she's done is continue to perform at the highest level, winning games, scoring points, and excelling every time she steps on the floor. And when someone reaches that level of greatness, it's inevitable that people will project their own opinions onto her. That's just the reality of sports when you can't be stopped on the court. But when Caitlin missed a few games, something became crystal clear. The numbers didn't lie. Some critics wondered how the league would fare without her on the court. The answer came fast. Rachel Nichols pointed it out immediately. The impact showed up in the ratings. Caitlin Clark isn't just a player, she's become the pulse of the league's popularity.
What is going on? Protect Caitlin Clark at all costs, please. Enough of this. Please.
This isn't just a speculation, it's backed by facts. Seasoned broadcasters have pointed directly to the ratings, and those numbers tell the real story. It completely shattered the belief that the WNBA's surge in popularity was just some natural progression that was bound to happen eventually. The reality, when Caitlin Clark isn't playing, viewership doesn't just dip. It drops significantly. There's no need for complicated analysis to figure out why. When Caitlin's on the court, fans show up, TVs turn on, and social media buzzes. When she's not, the energy simply isn't the same. You can interpret that however you want, but one truth remains. Caitlin Clark isn't just part of the conversation. She's the driving force behind it. Even the world of comedy, which rarely crosses into sports discourse, has taken notice. Jimmy Fallon, known for his lighthearted monologues, celebrity impressions, and viral games, stepped out of his usual lane to acknowledge what's happening. Fallon, typically focused on entertainment, recognized something serious unfolding around Caitlin Clark. And for once, it wasn't about punchlines or jokes.
Welcome back to The Real Story. We've all heard about the Caitlin Clark effect on women's basketball. And if you haven't, you should, because ever since joining the WNBA, ticket sales, merchandise sales, TV ratings, interest in the league have all skyrocketed. We're talking about one person who has taken this league and just lifted it to a whole new level.
This wasn't a viral meme or a trending TikTok moment. This was national television. A major broadcast airing during one of the most watched programs in its time slot. And when someone like Jimmy Fallon breaks from his usual lighthearted tone, it speaks volumes. Fallon has made a career out of poking fun at sports headlines and celebrity drama. But this time, it wasn't a joke. It was serious. He pointed out the growing concern around Caitlin Clark. The hard fouls, the unnecessary hits, the obvious targeting. Even a comedian could recognize a troubling pattern, and when a single player is drawing this much attention to the league, it's clear she deserves protection, not punishment. Then Dr. Phil weighed in, and he didn't sugarcoat his words. You know, a topic has truly crossed into mainstream conversation when Dr. Phil gets involved. He isn't a sports analyst or a former player, but his expertise lies in observing behavior, identifying patterns, and calling things out as he sees them. And when Dr. Phil looked at what's been unfolding around Caitlin Clark, he didn't see competitive basketball. He saw deliberate targeting, plain and simple.
You can get poked in the eye, but this was not an accident. These are people going after her, sticking their fingers in her eyes, shoving her to the ground, blindsiding her, knocking her down. And clearly, these are players jealous of Clark's success and fame, and they have been playing dirty since the minute she joined the league. She came in highly touted. I mean, she redefined women's basketball at the college level.
This isn't just some social media opinion. This is a respected national figure pointing out exactly what's going on. What Caitlin Clark is facing on the court isn't simply tough defense. It's crossed a line. We're talking about unnecessary elbows, shoves, body checks, and eye pokes, and it's happening far too often, and far too obviously compared to any other player. Yet despite all of this, Caitlin Clark has never lost her cool. No outbursts, no dramatic reactions, no technical fouls. She simply takes the hit, adjusts her ponytail, and calmly drills another deep three on the next possession. That level of composure? It's rare. Especially when it seems like the league is allowing this level of physicality to continue unchecked. Almost like she's playing football, not basketball. But Dr. Phil didn't stop at just calling out the fouls. He looked at the broader conversation. Not just what's happening on the court, but the narratives forming around it.
I just have nothing but great things to say about who she is as a person. You know, she's so welcoming and just so warm as an individual that she can have a conversation with anybody. She's cut from the same cloth as me in that regard. You know what? Us Midwesterners, we tend to just, accept everybody with open arms. And she was so kind to my family and everyone in the suite when she came to KC. So huge fans of Caitlin Clark in my family and friend group.
That message lands differently because Caitlin Clark never chased this level of attention. She didn't set out to become the face of the WNBA. She earned that recognition through her performance. Every shot she's taken, every brilliant pass she's made, and every arena she's filled with fans eager to watch her play. But when you reach this level of success this quickly and on this big of a stage, it doesn't just shake up the standings, it shakes up the entire narrative. Suddenly, it's not just opposing players trying to slow you down on the court. The conversation itself starts to shift. Critics try to paint her as the problem, when all she's really done is raise the bar for everyone. Dr. Phil saw it for what it is, and millions of fans agree. Caitlin's not just absorbing physical contact during games. She's also taking criticism from every possible angle. Yet, she continues to handle it all with the poise and maturity of a seasoned veteran. And then there's Travis Kelce, a man who knows greatness when he sees it. From Super Bowl victories to the world's biggest pop star, the spotlight has followed Kelce his entire career. So when Caitlin Clark attended a Chiefs game and ended up in his suite, most expected a polite acknowledgement at best. But Travis noticed something bigger, and he couldn't stop talking about it.
Super Bowl Sunday, so I don't know if I'll get to see it, but just a tremendous player, tremendous person. I've met with her and talked. You can tell she loves the game. She loves playing at Iowa, and it's gonna be one of the best women's basketball, one of the best college basketball players to ever play, and then go to the WNBA and dominate there as well. Hopefully, I never have to play her one-on-one because she'll for sure be getting buckets on me.
This isn't just about basketball skills or flashy highlights. It's about the kind of person Caitlin Clark is off the court. She doesn't carry herself like a celebrity. There's no entourage following her around, no dodging fans or acting above it all. Instead, she shows up, takes time to connect with people, and always leaves a positive impact behind. That's exactly why someone like Travis Kelce goes from curious observer to genuine fan. Because Caitlin carries herself with the talent of a superstar, but the humility of someone who still sees herself as just a small-town kid from Iowa. But if you thought that was the peak of admiration, Patrick Mahomes took it a step further. Mahomes, a league MVP, Super Bowl champion, and arguably the greatest quarterback in football today, didn't just show respect. When asked about Caitlin Clark, he flat out admitted he couldn't guard her. There's no ego involved here, no false bravado. Just one generational athlete recognizing another, openly admitting she'd leave him in the dust. That's how you know Caitlin Clark isn't just changing the game. She's impacting the culture far beyond it. She's crossing boundaries, connecting sports worlds, from basketball courts to football fields, from game highlights to becoming a household name. At this point, Caitlin Clark's influence stretches well beyond the WNBA. Shane Gillis was stunned. Dan Dakich called her Steph Curry with a twist. Christine Brennan said she's the greatest thing to ever happen to women's basketball. David Letterman recognized the fire. Dr. Phil pointed out the targeting. And Patrick Mahomes? He didn't even pretend. He already surrendered before stepping on the court. These aren't casual fans. These are MVPs, comedians, media icons, and industry leaders all echoing the same sentiment. Caitlin Clark isn't just another rising star. She's a cultural force, a disruptor, a phenomenon no one saw coming but no one can ignore. And if this is the level of reaction now, imagine what's still ahead. When she captures her first WNBA championship, when she shatters records that haven't even been written yet, when young girls proudly wear her number 22 jersey, not just because of what she's achieved, but because of what she represents. Because Caitlin Clark didn't come to blend in. She came to redefine everything.